So our next talk will be given by Keith Tsai from Lancaster University, and he'll be talking about Chinese dialectal cleft constructions. So Keith, could you share your screen now?
Hi everyone, can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, yes.
I'm sharing my screen, and I find the right file. Okay, so here it is, and then we'll just go to the first slide. Yeah, so can you see the opening slide now? Is that okay?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so can I begin? Yeah, can I begin now? Yeah, it's okay.
Yes, looks good.
Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, first of all, thank you to everyone for coming here. Thank you to the organizer for organizing this very successful conference so far. I've enjoyed this conference very, very much. So my thanks to the organizers, especially He, who's now currently I'm chairing this session. Yes, I'm going to talk about your Chinese dialectal clefts, and talk about from a formal perspective. So lateral, grammaticalization, parameterized. I'll just thank some people. So just 3 people before I begin. The Professor Feng Chenglin, who taught me classical Chinese some years ago. Edith Aldridge for commenting earlier draft of this paper, and also to the members of the CPP lab, especially Nancy Hedberg for many insightful comments on clefts. This is dedicated to all of you. Right. So the construction that I'm going to talk about is it's very famous. It's a shudder. Okay, we all know about this construction, yeah, I imagine. And there are many works that have been done on this. I've just decided to have 3 review works that cite all the major works that have been done on this. Yeah, I mean this construction, it's called shudder because it consists of 2 elements: shi plus de. So shi is be a copula, and it takes the as part of its complement. So an example in Mandarin, they said this example, 张三是昨天买票的. Okay, 是昨天, the emphasis on 昨天, the element after 是. In recent years, people have looked at the historical formation of Chinese clefts, Long and Xiao, Long, Jan and Traugott, etc. And there are also many other works. Yeah. And they've all concentrated on the collocations of shi plus de in the historical texts. Okay, so we take shi as the main verb, it's a copula verb, and it takes de as part of its complement. Shi plus de, that's the collocation that people have been looking at. Comparative dialectal distributions have also been looked at as well, because it's mainly to do with de and ge. I mentioned that de is the element that's used in Mandarin, and de is commonly labeled as an adnominal which corresponds to many G forms like de and ke in other dialects. Yeah. So for example, in Cantonese, for example, the exact equivalent to the Mandarin example above would be this one. 登山come yet my figure. Okay, ge. We use hai as copula and use ge, it's equivalent to Mandarin de. Okay, so this is a very brief intro to the phenomenon that I'm going to talk about today. Simpson and Wu, they propose a hypothesis for the formation of a Chinese cleft. It's called lateral grammaticalization. We can also call it the LG, because they point out that in Northern Mandarin we often have this type of alternation. So, not only do we have de in sentence final position, we can also have de in sentence medial position. So the famous example alternation that they use is this one. 张三是昨天买票的, or the equivalent would be 张三是昨天买的票. Okay, so these 2 constructions, they mean exactly the same here. Just 买票的, but just 买的票. There are some differences between these 2 constructions. A VOD, the sentence final D, omit all TAM, so tense, mood, and aspect values, whereas VdeO obligatorily marks the past tense. The here has to refer to past events. So for example, we can use the to refer to future events. For example, 他是明天才会去北京的. Whereas if we use the equivalent for VdeO, it doesn't work. We cannot say 他是明天才会去的北京. That's totally out. Okay, so VOD has more tense values than the VdeO. They argue on historical and comparative assumption that de is repositioned from sentence final position to a sentence medial position. So de has been criticized from a sentence final position to next to the verb, because this is because while VOD is attested in all Chinese dialects, VdeO is only found in certain dialects. So if we use historical comparative assumptions, I think we have to conclude that the has been fronted. So they also argue, from a formal perspective, that there's a case of lateral grammaticalization, because they say that in sentence-final position, is a nominal functor. It's a D element, whereas as a sentence-medial position, it's a verbal affix denoting past tense, which analyzed as T. So they argue that this formation of Chinese clefts from VOD to VdeO is a case of lateral grammaticalization. Is reanalyzed from a D element to a T element. Many people, namely Abney, have done work on looking at the parallels between the clausal and nominal domains, how D and T are parallels in their respective domains. So yeah, this is very much in line with these sort of formal analyses. Right, so if we have a look at the research background, and also raise some research questions. The thing about Simpson and Wu is that there's this historical assumption. Okay, they assume that VdeO is derived from VOD. They don't actually provide any historical examples, any historical analysis. In recent years, people like Long and Xiao, they've openly challenged Simpson and Wu, because they actually look at historical examples, and they say that VOD, the earliest examples of VOD are found in the Yuan dynasty, whereas VdeO is found in the Northern Song dynasty. For those who know, our Chinese history, our Chinese dynasty, Song comes before Yuan. Okay, so there seems to be some kind of a chronological discrepancy here. People like Zhang and Han, they find examples of VOD in the Tang dynasty, in the Dunhuang Bianwenji. Right, so there are these chronological difficulties, and people have been looking at these two variants, and they come with the different chronologies there. So the diachrony of Chinese clefts is quite messy, and we see people challenging Simpson Wu here by saying that their assumption doesn't work on philological grounds. And also there's the comparative analysis. I put out 2 slides before that the and ge. Okay, we've got this northern and southern divide between dialects with the and ge. And interesting thing is, while ge, sentence final ge is okay, as we saw, 2 slides back, sentence medial ge is not permitted. So if you look at an example in Cantonese again, 張三琴日買飛嘅, it's fine. Okay, it was yesterday that 張三bought tickets. But if you want to say 張三係琴日買嘅飛, no, totally out. Even if this refers to past tense, 係琴日, okay, it was yesterday that 張三bought tickets. We cannot say 買嘅飛. So again, we seem to have some parametric variation between the and ge in terms of the position of the functor. Right, so what I propose to do today is to have a look at the historical comparative analysis of Chinese clefts. For that, we've gotten these research questions. VOD and VOge, both are fine. So in the sentence final the and ge occur in all Chinese varieties. Sentence medial the is okay, but in the same position, VgeO is not. So we get these parametric variations between the and ge within the context of Chinese clefts. Right, so if we just have a brief outlook on cleft construction. So standard work and information structure have shown that clefts they consist of the focus plus background. So yeah, so these works they also go from start from Chomsky's 1977 paper try to derive WH movement and via operator movement, as we shall see. Famous example is it clefts. So for example, English and Romance, we get many famous examples of it clefts and it clefts. The construction usually takes this kind of form. Okay, so it plus cop, the copula, and then there's focus, and there's the presupposition, which is the relative clause. Point the main verb is copula verb. And I think that people have shown that a copula verbs can assign focus, because as classical works like Higgins have shown that copula verbs typically have specification and identificational force. So the copulas can assign focus. And also the copula verbs behave like a verb. So in people have shown that we can have different tense values. So for example, Nancy Hedberg has shown that it was Clinton who won. Okay, past tense. A couple of does show tense values with behave like a verb. It was Clinton or it will be Clinton who will win, etc. We can also negate the verb. So for example, the example by Matthew Reeves, although it probably wasn't John cooked stew, it might have been John. Because it was not John. It might have been John. So we can use a negation and also modal auxiliaries to accompany the copular verb. So this looks like a verb assigning focus rather than a focus head, as early works of clefs have tried to argue. And in order to derive the bipartition in cleft, people have shown that there is an A bar, some kind of operator movement fronting the focused element. Again, this goes back to Chomsky in 1977, who derives the population movement by A bar movement.
You have 10 minutes left.
Thank you very much. If we apply all of these here to Chinese clefs, so if we look in the Chinese clefs again, so this example, which we saw earlier, okay, so 张三是昨天买树的. Quite similar in we have a subject, taking a copular verb, 是昨天, focus is on the element immediately adjacent, immediately after it. So 是昨天买票的. We also have this focus on a presupposition structure. We can also say that the copular verb is the verb. It's a verb assigning a focus because it also displays the verbal properties as we saw on the previous slide. Yeah, so we can use the verb neg d, the v neg d alternation with with 是 here. So for example, 你是不是昨天来的? Was it not yesterday that you came? 是不是昨天来的? This is a standard test for testing finite verbs in Chinese, and it seems to apply here. We can also use adverbs and negates for sure. So for example, 又是他姐姐开的门, or 不是他姐姐开的门. Okay, 又是他姐姐, or 不是他姐姐. So again, this looks like a verb, isn't it? Also, we can also use tense markers with 是. So for example, 会是我明天要是不是这里的? 会是我明天要在公园里见他的. Okay, it will be I or me who have to see her in the park tomorrow. Okay, so we seem to be looking at a verb here. This is essentially a copular verb construction where there is focus being assigned to with some complement. And then we can also derive the focus and presupposition structure via A bar movement. So to the left periphery of the embedded clause, there is some focus here. So if you put all of these things together, all right, so it clefs look like this, as I show our two slides before. Try and use a should clefs and look like this. They are quite similar, and there's a verb, the copular verb 是 assigning focus, and within the complements, the clausal complement, there's focus and background, yeah. And Chinese, the relative clause, the comes at the end. Focus, presupposition, and then the. We can also derive this in terms of this kind of structure, and then there's a copular verb, matrix verb assigning focus, and the cleft verb is derived by A bar movement. So there is A bar movement to the left periphery of the relative clause. In addition to the tense value, you see VdeO obligatorily denotes the past tense. There are also differences in information structure. And the VOde meant both narrow and broad foci, whereas VdeO only has some narrow foci. Okay, so for example, I'm taking an example by Lisa Chen. 这些人最近开始酿酒的. Okay, but this is ambiguous. This could be a narrow subject focus. 是希腊人最先搞这个的. It was Greeks who did this. Or this could be a case of broad focus where it's an assertion. Okay, it was the case, or it is the case. The Greeks were the first to brew wine. With VdeO, however, we don't have this kind of ambiguity. So, for example, 张三写的是, okay, this could only have narrow focus, so focus on the subject. 是张三写的是. This does not have broad focus, as we have on the previous example. If you want to have broad focus to make this into some kind of assertion, we would have to use VOde. So 是张三写是的. This is the case that Zhang San, writes or wrote the poem. Okay, so VOD has can have broad focus, whereas VdeO only has narrow focus. So if we try to represent this, yes, I've given you this tree here, which kind of this represents a VOD. So the main verb is the copula verb, which are called pred, following vowels and a dendican, etc. Main verb assigns focus. So there is a VOge, the uninterpreted focus feature, which is basically a selectional feature. So this assigns focus to its complement clause. The complement clause has focus. It's essentially a low C clause, and it's headed by the, and by extension the. It's a low C element because in the left periphery it comes below focus, as people like Mortropon has shown. So it's a low C element, and above it there is some focus. And here, so you're given that the and ge have scope over the entire clause, the TP. We can move various things to the speck of fog in order to derive focus. So here, we can move specific bits like subject and adverb and verb, etc. Or we can move the entire clause, the entire TP to the speck of fog in order to derive broad focus. Hence, we get this narrow and broad foci.
You have 5 minutes left.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so with VdeO, it's like this. We also have a matrix, couple of assigning a focus. However, the internal structure it's a bit different, and we analyze it as a past tense marker. And I argue that it undergoes affix hopping to a lower position where it gets affixed onto the verb. And here, operator movement only applies to subject and adverb. Really, we can't move the entire thing to the speck of fog as we had in the previous slide. So we only have some narrow focus here rather than broad focus. Right. So these are two formal representations of the VOD and the VdeO. Right. If we look at historical comparative distribution, the recent work, they've done a lot of work on the history of this construction. We've established, should the verbs are basic copula verbs. So should is a copula verb taking a clausal complement. It's for a historical corpora. I've used the PKU, the famous PKU, a historical corpora on Chinese, as well as the CTEX. Okay, now, these are both very, very good. But these have online word searches and concordances, so we can do sort of online concordances, quite convenient. Keyword here is sure. Okay, so we are looking at sure, and we're looking at the various entries that these give. So here is a screenshot of the PKU corpus. Okay, so sure is a keyword. We've got 30 words to its left and 30 words to its right, so we can track the complements, so what comes after it that may or may not contain the and ge, etc. Okay, so here's just one page. As you can see, there are 409,000 entries of sure in the historical corpus. So,
We have 3 minutes left.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so I've spent hours trying to look for these historical examples, and here they are. Okay, so a tough construction with the VOD, however. The earliest example that I can find is this one in the Tang Dynasty and the Huang Bian Wen Ji. Okay, so we have it is a contrastive. Yes, so it's an old form of what we have is contrastive focus because that's semantic or alternatives. 非是菩萨行堂，此是素人坐顶. Okay, so these are semantic alternatives give rise to contrastive focus. So we can reanalyze the second sentence as either a narrow subject focus, so 此是素人坐顶, or broad focus. This is the case that layman did this. So alternations that give rise to focus and reanalysis of the second clause as a cleft construction, or this one in 古唐记 another text from the Tang Dynasty. 是云人人皆有的一即是，赠云即是人人皆有的. Okay, so what's interesting here is that the lexicon is omitted. 人人皆有的一，即是人人皆有的. Okay, so yi is omitted. Yeah, so we can reanalyze this as, I think, a prototype of the modern Chinese conditional 话. So 即是人人皆有的一，or 即是人人皆有的话. If everyone has it. Okay, so the as a low C element and hua denoting conditionals, which Nina Zhang has argued before. The idea is that there are contexts where the can lose its nominal properties, yeah, namely in semantic alternatives, also omission of lexical noun, and they can be reanalyzed as clausal following the LG pattern.
We have 1 minute left.
Yeah, okay, yeah, so I'll just hurry up a bit. Okay, so with the VdeO, however, there are also examples like this. So for example, in the Song dynasty, so a bit later than Tang, so 天下人总是贪得的禅，谋是悟得的。So again, the is the earlier form of the. Also here we get your contrastive focus because we get semantic alternative. 贪得的禅，悟得的. So again, we can reanalyze it as focus construction. So it was by studying that most people did it. It's by understanding that I did it. Also, there are these some examples in the Yuan dynasty. So Yuan 大句，现在是打一两个人是如此如此使的手段. The idea is that dialectical noun is abstract, and if it's abstract, it can be non-referential. We can reanalyze it. It was in this way. 是如此如此这般使的手段. And
Sir,
also,
I think you should wrap up your talk.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So, and also there are these some examples where the lexical noun is abstract and non-referential. So these also give rise to reanalysis, which I shan't go through it because I'm running out of time. With VOge and VgeO, however, okay, examples of G are very rare. This has been omitted by most people. However, there are some examples which I'd like to show you. In 赌当记 the text that we saw before 是指前面的狗的明明个分是鸡是明明的 okay, so like before we have the lexical noun omitted, so 鸡是明明的狗子 we can reanalyze 这个鸡是明明的话 which also have for example in the dialects that have okay, so for example can't see something something that's the conditional construction. This also gives rise to a clausal reanalysis. VgeO, however, is a bit different. And we get these examples in 精品集 also and 出自语类或个 note quantification. So 我是看个书，你还是举个头 etc. So here, if it's go, being classified has inherent countability, and so it's harder to reanalyze these as verbal entities. Okay, so this is the last slide. Actually, there's a case of lateral grammaticalization where a nominal pattern is reanalyzed as a clausal pattern. Yeah. So this is a lateral reanalysis. It's in its final position. And can be reanalyzed as SFP because there's no noun coming after them, so we can weaken their nominal properties and reanalyze them as clausal. In sentence-medial percentage, but is more marked than the. Has a count feature, so that makes it harder to reanalyze as a verbal suffix as the can in VdeO. Thank you very much, and let's have a discussion right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much.